Good morning and welcome to Travels with Monkey Boy. Today we're taking you back to November of 2005. Um, we took a week off of vacation of school for Lizzie or for Mia, for Frankie and Alex. Frankie would have been 13 and Alex would have been 15. These two videos it's two-parter about Spain and Portugal, and we got a little bit of a different format than the other ones I've done. For whatever reason, this is the way I wrote it up back in 2005. So here goes the story. Top 5 places. Granada, number 1. This isn't the greatest city in Spain, but I think we did it perfectly. We were here on Thanksgiving Day and had our Thanksgiving dinner at a Moroccan restaurant outside under the full moon in the old town of Granada. The dinner was universally agreed as the best meal we had on our trip: couscous, kebabs, and the like. Afterwards, we went to this place that had a gypsy band performing flamenco in the cellar of a local club. Very authentic and probably the single coolest thing we did in Spain. The dancing and singing were astounding. I thought it was going to be corny, but it was really powerful. When you look at the pictures in a few minutes, you can see the two guys. They had two guys playing the flamenco guitars. Next to them is a man that sang the flamenco songs. And next to him were the three dancers who did nothing but clap. But oh, the clapping. It was truly one of the most incredible music experiences I ever had. These three people doing nothing more than clapping their hands created this booming rhythmic sound. We also did some shopping in Granada and we spent Friday morning at the Alhambra. This is the Moorish castle that is considered by the UN as a World Heritage Site. The palace was very cool and perhaps a bit better than the Alcazar in Sevilla, but to our eyes, not so much better than that it would get the acclaim that it did. Okay, part of the glory of this place is the gardens, which were mostly filled with dead flowers at this time of the year. But if the Alcazar was a 92, Alhambra was a 93. Pretty hard to separate them. And yes, Moorish. I think this is the reason why southern Spain is so acclaimed. When you go to Buckingham Palace, well, it's not so different than Versailles. Or Westminster Abbey is not so different than the Cathedral in Cologne. But these southern Spanish palaces are hugely different. So if one were doing a trip of Europe and visiting England, France, Germany, and Spain, well, one would say Spain is spectacular only because it is spectacularly different. Personally, I love the old Muslim castles. Each had as their central focus gardens and running water. Very peaceful. As I was looking around the Alcazar, I remember thinking for the first time ever, being extremely wealthy wouldn't be so bad. Most of those old European castles, while fascinating, seemed unappealing to live in. This place, sign me up. Number 2, Sintra and Lisbon. This was our craziest day, though if you know my vacations, it was the craziest only by a small degree. We were staying in a pretty cool bed and breakfast run by a Swiss guy. It looked better from the outside than the inside, but nice enough. Anyway, on our full day in Sintra, the old palace city of the Portuguese nobility, we started off by taking a tour of the old palace, kind of a frumpy 17th century stuff, though with some beautiful vistas. Sintra was situated in a series of very tall hills. Then we went to the new palace, which was way cooler, way higher up in the hills and mountains, but also less historic. A German prince married a Portuguese princess and then had this place built to look like a magic castle. It was very opulent and weird and kind of wonderful, although the family ended up running away in the 1910 coup. After the castle, we ate lunch at a pizza place that was probably our third best meal. Okay, we were culinarily handicapped by Frankie's dietary restrictions. She would only eat chicken, pizza, pasta, and peanut butter and jelly. But she's always hungry and the most likely to complain about being hungry. But the food was good. Frankie was the only one that ordered pizza and she didn't like hers. After the lunch, we went to this Franciscan monastery. After the two palaces, it was interesting to see the deep poverty the monks forced themselves into. This cold rock building carved into a cave with bedrooms barely twice the size of a human body. Still, it had its charms, including cork woodwork. In fact, we saw cork trees on the property, which are very interesting. Our biggest missed purchase was a beautiful cork purse that Danielle saw. The Portuguese produce something like 90% of the corks in the world, and they do it by stripping the bark from cork trees every 9 years or something like that. After the monastery, we went for a walk on the edge of the cliffs that were at the point furthest west in Europe. Beautiful. Then afterwards, approaching complete exhaustion, we took the train into Lisbon. In Lisbon, we ate at a Hard Rock Cafe, meal number two in ranking. So on this day, we had meal number two and three. Then we took off for a 2 hour walk through the dark streets of Lisbon with a street map, no sense of direction, and not even a word of Portuguese between us. Ultimately, we found the Fado restaurant we were looking for. Fado is the equivalent to Portuguese blues, or maybe somewhere between blues and folk songs. The crowd was largely made up of old Portuguese people that sang as loudly as the singers. There were four soloists that followed in turn. I say blues because I guess the songs are all melancholy. Still, the crowd sang them with great enthusiasm, and some of the songs brought tears to the eyes of some of the old women in the crowd. After the singers, a group of four dancers in traditional garb came out for a display of local dance. It was tap dance, but only the men had tap shoes. The women were mostly there to be twirled around with their skirts flying. Quaint, interesting, but I wouldn't buy the CD. We were also required to buy $20 of booze per person, and with Alex and Frankie not being much help on this, although they both gamely tried. So when the performance was done, we stumbled our way to the subway to get to the train station to take us to Sintra and the 30-minute walk to our hotel. This was like a 16-hour day of tourism, the day after arriving in Europe. But I don't leave room for relaxing. This is vacation. The third best spot was Rock of Gibraltar. For me personally, Gibraltar is a pilgrimage site, one of those places that I've always longed to see. It's geographically interesting, a huge rock in the middle of the ocean. Politically significant, long dispute between the British and Spanish over who should own it. Historically interesting, many wars fought over this rock, with Admiral Nelson buried here, and also beautiful. I'm not sure there is much else to say. There were monkeys on the island. We took the cable car to the top. We walked around the city a fair bit. We didn't get back until midnight, but for me, it was enough just to be there and breathe in the air and think of the wonder of it all. Okay, that's it for the story. Let me take you to the map so you can see what we were doing. Here we are. Again, started in Green Bay, Wisconsin, flew across to Spain, flew into Madrid. Let's get this centered. And we got into our car and drove to Lisbon the day that we arrived. And the very first day was the day that we did Lisbon and Sintra. Our hotel was in Sintra. Next day we went down to São Vicente, and then we talked about the Rock of Gibraltar. Granada is over here, and Sevilla is here. Okay, more on that tomorrow. And let me take you real quick to see some pictures. Here's the gang leaning on our Citroen Picasso. It's a French car at the time. The funny thing about this car is it was only manual transmission, so I had to shift gears. I gotta say, not very familiar with it. 95% of all my driving of manual transmission cars have been rental cars in Europe. And at this point in my life, I make sure that I get an automatic. Although much easier to get an automatic these days than it used to be. We stopped in a little city between Madrid from picking up the car in Lisbon just to have some lunch. And the cool thing about Spain is even in the small little cities along the way, you've got glorious old squares and churches and um, I mean just beautiful places that would be like the highlight of a place in the US and in Spain. Nobody even mentions it. Okay, this is the old castle in Sintra, looking over the hills, um, the palm trees. There's the ladies. We did some shopping, bought some plates there. Looking through, you've got even though this was built long after the Moorish departure, you still have that kind of architecture that reminds you of the Moors. And here is the modern castle in Sintra. You can see that yellow color is a very German thing. This is the entrance with the tiles, again reminding you of their Moorish background. There's the close-up picture of the tiles. There's Alex fascinated with the tiles. The ladies looking over the countryside. Now we're at the monastery, as I mentioned. That's the bedroom right there. Here's the area that they walked back and forth. Very modest, very, you know, ugly looking place, but there's a cork tree right there. No, that's a cork tree. Here is the fado singer that I mentioned. Traditional Portuguese songs. Those are the fado dancers. There's the guy that's tap dancing and the women whose sole purpose seem to be to twirl their skirts. This is a doll that was being sold in Gibraltar. It's the most ridiculous bit of we don't understand capitalism exhibit. That was our bed and breakfast that we stayed in Sintra. And I think that's about it. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for coming.